And it looks like we've made it. Looks like we've settled into the studio here at the Cassius Morris Show. How are you feeling?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm feeling good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And of course, we're in studio with our special guest who goes by the name of Karimah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's our first time meeting, so it's a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you too.
Definitely. So are you born and raised here in Edmonton?
Yes, I am from Millwoods.
Nice. Holla, okay.
Millwoods represent.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you think they get a bad rep in Edmonton?
Oh, of course.
A little bit.
I mean, every neighborhood has its thing, you know.
Mhm.
So, a little bit of a bad reputation, but I kept to myself. I had an okay upbringing, I guess, you know.
Right.
Definitely had the experiences of seeing some blood on the concrete.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. That's pretty typical in Edmonton, though.
Yeah.
Would you compare Millwoods to like LA neighborhood?
Well, I have no idea. I unfortunately have not traveled that much. But
Okay.
I mean, in terms of the reputation, yeah, there's the the Millwoods thing, the Northside thing. The funny thing about Millwoods is that it's big. It's like I grew up with the knowledge that it's the biggest neighborhood in Edmonton, and it's like gigantic. It's practically a city of its own. But it's really true. It's gigantic, and even within Millwoods, you had like richer neighborhoods. You had some not so rich neighborhoods.
Right.
You have like a huge East Indian community. There are black people there. There are white people there. So it's diverse.
Yeah.
It's like its own thing, you know.
Right.
So.
It's interesting how Edmonton is like that. You can have communities within communities.
Yeah.
All in the same kind of spot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you feel like Edmonton gets the credit for being as big of a city as it is?
Does it get the credit?
Yeah, because I feel like, we look at, people look at Canada, they think Vancouver, Toronto. They don't seem to think Edmonton right off the bat.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, to me, Edmonton's like, and everyone says this, but it's true. It's like a little big city.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a small town feel with a city vibe.
Yeah.
And we're growing, and even the current mayor, says that we're a new city, and that's always what we're, on these magazines and stuff, they talk about Edmonton is like, we're always voted as like the newest city, freshest, everything's like the first time it's happening here, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't really get the credit, like it doesn't get the high profile across the world, but I've met a lot of people who have been here and said it's like the most amazing city they've ever been to, and they've traveled everywhere, and we still get some good concerts, not as many as Vancouver and Toronto.
It's getting there though.
We get a lot
now,
We get a lot.
Yeah, with Rogers Place now. I mean, even when I first got here, Rogers Place wasn't built, so.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Same here.
Even when right afterwards, it was just like a boom. Everybody wanted to come here now.
Exactly. Yeah. And now living downtown, for me, I'm seeing all of these things. Like when I was little, those things didn't exist, and so all the Rogers Place, like even just the new hipster restaurants and bars and stuff, like it's changing everything.
Yeah.
So
how do you feel it's changing the entertainment scene? Because I've been watching the comedy scene grow so much. The music scene is growing exponentially. Are you seeing it shift? Like, is there more people coming out to shows, or is it just more exposure on social media?
Mm-hmm. I think, well, what's funny? We have to start with my honest confession that I don't go out that much.
Okay.
I stay in a lot, so I'm kind of out of touch in terms of what's going on for live experiences.
Fair.
From what I see, there are artists that like there's a big underground community who are a fan of these artists, like Selection.
Mm-hmm.
Joe K came a few months ago. I got an opportunity to go to that, and it was so cool to go to 9910, which is run by my friend Clint, who's amazing, and just to see like this little room, but it's completely packed, and it's hip hop and like trancey, like R&B stuff that like I just knew of because of a podcast and like a radio show on SoundCloud.
Sure.
So I think shows in places like a 9910, like a cool club, stuff like that, and the fact that there's a big community coming to those things, like there's a venue for things that aren't necessarily like top 40 radio or just, what we're known for in the West, which is like folk music and like country stuff and indie rock and everything. Right. There's a lot of diversity in terms of what the music community is doing. There's so much going on in the city because there are just such diverse communities. Mm-hmm. But it is a challenge for me, like, to really find any roots in venues in the city.
Okay.
And I can see how anyone visiting would have a lot of trouble finding what to do. And this has been a problem since I was a young person, just even starting to go out.
Right.
And even going to arts and cultural, like, meetings with community and, like, Edmonton Arts Council and stuff like that. Like, the way that our venues are set up, it's like, they don't last very long. So you never have that vibe of, say, like in New York, this is the hip-hop club that's existed for 30 years. Go there for hip-hop.
These people have come here through the years, etc.
You don't have that here. It's every venue is kind of like trying to figure stuff out.
Right.
And in that first, like, 5-year period where businesses can really, like, start to get a stride, they usually end up shutting down.
Okay.
So to me, that, like, lack of legacy and that lack of, like, a long-standing community kind of thing affects the music. Like, affects, like, the going out, like, in the long run, right? Like, as a young person, you want to know, like, okay, well, where am I going to go to get the type of music I want to dive into?
You want those, like, exclusive, like, little clubs where you feel comfortable.
Exactly.
And stuff like that.
And that's, it was really hard to find that as a teenager. I'm, like, 29 years old now, so I don't know what it's like for youth these days.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been talking to people who work with, like, iHuman and all the creative youth who are, like, becoming MCs.
Yeah.
They have, like, they feel like they have nowhere to really go.
Right. In the city.
In the city, especially somewhere that's, like, a safe space.
Right.
We're talking about queer youth. We're talking about people who are aware of, like, substances, who are, becoming an adult. They don't want to be around substance abuse or, and alcohol and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the only real places to be are the country bar that turns into a venue,
Right.
or, like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like that's most of it. It's like, okay, well, it's like...
It's hip-hop night at the Ranch Roadhouse.
Exactly. It's hip-hop night at the
True.
Ranch.
It's
It's
true.
hip-hop night at, like, Hudson's or on the Rocks or whatever. It's kind of like, okay, what, like, we don't have that culture.
You're not going to have a place where it's like hip-hop every night of the week. We're doing
Yeah.
freestyle tonight. We're doing roast battle the next night.
Exactly.
It would be cool to have that consistency. So,
Yeah.
And I guess when you look at, like you said, like the bigger places like New York or LA, they have those established venues that have been going on for so long.
Yeah.
So maybe part of it is that it's very scattered, but it also seems like, that because it's scattered, it seems like there's almost a positive side to it where it seems like there's niches that are being built.
Mm-hmm.
And people, like you say, there's so many different kinds of music. What kind of niche in music would you say you most relate to, if any?
That's so tricky for me, but I love, like, dreamy pop and R&B.
Okay.
And, like, soul.
Nice.
And I'm still, like, I'm working on an EP right now, and this is me working on really defining my style.
Okay.
And I've performed in, like, well, maybe not every, but several avenues, being in a rock band, blues project where it's like, blues on white.
Cool. That
kind of thing. And then doing the Honor Roll Music Collective, performing, like, anywhere and everywhere. It's hard for me to put a niche on, like, myself, but the upcoming project, I'm actually hoping that I can start to perform in more, like, kind of warehouse, like, empty art spaces, or, like, art galleries and stuff. Like, I'd love to do, like, Latitude 53, the art gallery, and create, like, a kind of like a conceptual, like, surreal kind of thing with my music.
Nice.
So
in what way? Like, you want to have paintings and have it tie in, or something else?
I'm actually working on something, hopefully, that'll feel interactive or at least immersive with, like, projections.
Nice.
It's in development. We'll see what happens, but in the next 6 months, I want to create, like, basically an art installation that's going to go along with the EP.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And I'm working on a visual album too, so I want it to all go together. Gotta find the money to do it, but I'm working on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I really like new technology, and although I'm not really educated in how to execute those things, I don't know how to code. I don't really know much about, like, videography and stuff like that. But
sure.
I love 3D projections, and I love, like, lights and lasers and, like, just the stuff you can do with like virtual reality.
There's a lot you can do.
Yeah. And I'd love to incorporate that into like a concert setting.
Yeah.
So I'm working on it. I'm figuring it out.
It's fantastic. You know, that's cool. And that's part of an artist's progression, figuring it out and sometimes not figuring it out and just doing what you do. You know? Do you ever picture yourself in like a large arena environment doing something like that? Or would you want to keep it at a theater environment kind of thing?
I would love to do large arenas. Just because of, I mean, you know, take like Rihanna's, I think it was her last tour where she's like going across on a clear bridge. And, you know, if I had the means to do that, yes, I would be doing that. I would have bubbles, like...
Yeah, those bubbles were hard.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I would, you know, I would have everyone walking in with like virtual reality glasses and they're just like totally tripping because they feel like the whole stadium has become like outer space. Like, I would love to do that, for sure. So that's like the ultimate dream. Right now, I'm performing where I can and where people will have me. So it's actually been interesting as a challenge because back to the venue situation, taking venues where it's a basic stage, you know, just a wooden platform.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have control over the lighting, the backdrop, the space that you have. And for me, taking on trying to create like a mood and create a vibe. Right, all around. Yeah, especially as a solo artist. Right. It's been challenging, and like the farthest I've gotten so far has been that I built like a PVC like triangle thing that I like stand in, and it's got lights and stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, I used it a few times, but then progressing on, now I'm working with a band, and I'm like, well, that doesn't really work.
Okay.
With the band, so it's always like a work in progress. I'm always thinking about like what's going to be cool live. How do I create something that's like interesting to look at when you're in a show? But it's weird. It's like people kind of are amazed, which is awesome. But I always have that little bit of like, is this totally weird? Like, is this weird for the place that we're going to? Right. Because, you know, you go to the Starlight Room or wherever, and like people are they go to a show and they're like, okay, I'm gonna be drinking, I'm gonna hang out. It's not necessarily like, wow, I'm going to like an experience, you know? And I want to give people an experience, but it's like hard to take you there sometimes. So I kind of have to ride that line and just figure out how to sometimes adapt. But I'm hoping I can just like create something that's a show.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's really interesting. You know, it's like I can imagine. I know exactly what you mean. It's like with the comedy nights, it's in a bar, and like they'll be playing the Oilers game, and they're like, you know, come in for a comedy night. It would be cool if there was that dedicated place. But, you know, people sort of have to sign on to be a part of an experience, and they have to be open-minded. And it'd be nice if more people in that setting were open-minded, but I can understand how they might be thrown at certain points. But what I would say is, I think that's great, you know, and I think creating an experience, I think the people it will impact and the people that it does resonate with, as I'm sure you know, that will be the determining factor. You know, I think that'll be fantastic. It'd be cool to see, you know, sold out places and, you know, people, you know, and you're building it. I could see it happening. So you don't identify with any specific kind of niche per se. You mentioned that you started off with rock music. Was that where your heart was originally, with rock?
It was, yeah. When I was probably about 15, 16, I literally like switched the dial from Power 92 radio station, which like was like pop music, you know, and like they went out of business, so transitioned to whatever they did. Yeah. And I was like, well, okay, gotta change the radio station. What do I do? So I like scrolled up by one, and I think I hit like 92, 93. Would that be like K-Rock, I think? I don't know.
Yeah, K97 is something
97,
like that.
yeah.
97,
Yeah. So it must have been K-Rock, and I was like, oh, there's other stuff. Like, this is... So all of a sudden, every morning, I'm hearing, like, AC/DC and Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin and, like, stuff like that. And I had been exposed to a little bit of that because of just music television and having, you know, growing up, I had a single mom, so you're home a lot, like, TV on, watching much more music.
Commercials, music videos.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm, like, learning about all this old music, and then I go to school, and there's, like, you know, someone playing guitar in music class and like rocking out. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I want to do that.
Yeah.
So my heart was like in it. I was like, I'm going to be a like super rock star, like a punk. Like I'm going to teach myself how to play guitar. I'm going to be like DIY. I'm going to play shows. It's going to be amazing. And I worked on that for years and collaborated with different people and performed live. I was in a band called Noisy Colors for 5 years. And
It's a good chunk of time.
yeah, it was a while. It was, I mean, I was in university, so it was like doing both at the same time.
Your side
we
thing.
just like pushed it, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was where my heart was. Like we went for it and just played a lot. And we're part of the community. Like my life was punk music and like hardcore music and stuff, and like being exposed to what was going on in the city
Right.
because of that. And it's interesting looking back because it's very much, I mean, the story of how someone becomes themselves is like kind of marked by my musical journey.
Yeah.
Like I learned piano when I was young, I took lessons, and then I learned pop progressions from the teacher. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I was kind of over lessons. I'm like, I just want to write music.
Yeah.
Teach myself guitar, teach myself how to write songs, start playing in coffee shops by myself, start a band. And the cultural aspect of that, like being an isolated like young person, going into public, seeing what the public thinks of you as like a young Black person in Edmonton, singing songs that aren't necessarily like defined by any genre. Like people try to place stuff on you, they try to
Definitely.
define you. And I definitely had like that identity crisis being part of a band where you're in a like very white male dominated like genre.
Yeah.
Like I'm
no
like,
denying that.
there's like literally I don't think I met any other Black females at any shows. Like maybe like once, maybe once or twice, I don't know, but
it is rare.
yeah, it was just like me. My guitar player, his family is from El Salvador, and other than that, I think we were like the only people of color we ever saw, pretty much. So it was very interesting. We're like, okay, but yeah, it was interesting, just culturally speaking. You know, like
Sure.
people hear me and they would tell me like, oh, you have an angelic voice, and I was like, I don't want an angelic voice. I want to be like hardcore. I want to be rough. Like I want to be this, and then like just growing through that and deciding to leave the band after a while, and just totally changing direction and just embracing like the fact that my voice can do a bunch of things that like people would deem like more soulful or more R&B or whatever. I
So-
just, you know,
So what made you want to
discovered that.
go from that to what you do now? Like you're more soulful R&B stuff.
yeah. I think, I mean, really the departure from Noisy Colors, at that time I was just trying to find a new part of myself.
Yeah.
Basically. And I really wanted to do something completely different. And people had told me, you know, the way that your voice is, you can do whatever you want. So I just decided, let's just go fully the other way.
Yeah.
You know, let's stop listening to all the like emo and punk and old rock music. We're done with that. We've had like many years of it. Let's put on a Beyonce CD for the first time ever at like 22 years old or whatever I was, which is like kind of weird.
So you hadn't really experimented with it before at all?
No, not at all. Like I had sung like in my house, just like singing along to Destiny's Child, like in my home
Sure.
or whatever, or like, you know, stuff my mom was listening to, like Whitney Houston. Like I knew that stuff and it was like part of me, but I didn't care to like pursue it creatively. I was really into like 50s rock and pop and like the Beatles and stuff like that.
Right. It's funny, that's the same thing with me.
Yeah?
I feel like that rock to R&B and rap progression is pretty natural. It feels natural for a lot of people, you know, because it's just, there are a lot of similarities too. You know, with the energy, like with the aggressive hip-hop songs, the aggressive rock songs, there are parallels that can be drawn.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, just looking at music history, you know, like the transition from rock and roll music, where you have like Chuck Berry, just like guitar, like coming from that and that has to evolve. Like,
Yeah.
North American music, like, the history of it is all about, like, that evolution and creating something new. Like, jazz to hip-hop is, like, such a... They're unified.
Right.
Even though people will see them as different, but even today, you can see the connection. Like, at the core, to me, like, progressive music is rock and roll. Like, rock and roll isn't, like, what you hear on the radio that's, like, rock music. Like,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be Bon Jovi.
yeah,
Right,
like,
yeah.
being rock and roll is, like, you're, like, pushing boundaries and you're doing something that's, like, bold and you're just, like, visceral and wild and, like, just, you know, pushing it.
Okay. So would you agree that there are some rappers out there who can be considered rock stars, or are you against
Oh,
that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, some people might find that offensive, but whatever.
No, I agree, because like me and Jesse were talking about this on the last podcast.
Yeah.
The constraint of language that has been put upon us for the past 30, well, I mean, longer than that, you know, a long, long time. I mean, it's insane. You know, like rock star, you picture a guy with a guitar in jean shorts who's dirty. That's not necessarily the case. You know, it's the vibe, it's the attitude. So, you know, I'm with that for sure. Now, you mentioned those shows, how you were basically the only female of color at all of these shows. How did that affect you, if at all? I assume it will, since you brought it up. And like, how did it play out? Were there ever big moments where it came out, or was it always subtle stuff?
Yeah. I mean, it was always an internal thing for me. I didn't ever feel... I was always embraced. I've gotten tons of compliments through my career as playing live and being a musician.
That's good.
I never felt like overtly alienated in terms of the creativity and like not being welcome. Definitely had times where, you know, people working just like assumed I didn't know what I was doing because I'm assuming because I'm a woman. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, I wasn't always embraced, but I think just the identity issue in terms of representation, it's just, that's what happens. Like, and I didn't realize it until later. Like the last few years of my life have been the time where I've been reflecting and seeing, okay, the way I've been feeling under the surface, there are real reasons for that I need to honor, even if nobody has talked about it or ever like overtly said anything to me. So what I'm trying to say is, sorry, I'm so long-winded.
No, I'm interested.
I'm just like breaking this down, but yeah, I guess what I'm saying is not seeing people that look like me automatically made me want to be like people that weren't like me. So
Okay.
like I grew up like thinking, okay, well, if I want to be a rock musician, I have to be skinny, I have to be white, I have to be male, I have to like act a certain way, and
Wear
that
spiky clothes.
yeah, exactly. And that affected like my personal style for sure. I was like emulating. I mean, I was a teenager, so I was just looking crazy anyway, but
Yeah, semi-normal.
yeah, I was like being wild, pins and like fingerless gloves and like weird stuff.
Oh, we were all there, trust me.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I
you
used to
know.
paint my nose black.
So did I. That's three in
DIY?
the room.
Paint your nose black?
No,
Nails.
my nails.
Oh, your nails. I heard nose. I'm like, what?
No, my nails black.
It's like panda core over here.
Yeah,
Like, what is
seriously.
this?
I would take apart those studded belts and I'd put them on my sweater.
Oh yeah, of course.
I made a choker out of one.
Yeah, you did.
5th grade.
You know, that's still a look. I'm still like there's always going to be like studs and texture.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Every once in a while you see a goth, someone dressed in goth
Yeah.
around here.
It's so
It
rare
makes you
now.
feel good.
It's rare. It's rare, but it's like, oh wow, that style's still going.
It'll
Those
never
2006
stop.
days of when it was prevalent. Like there was always like tons of couples who were both goth in the high school.
Yeah,
They'd
yeah.
always be off in the corner. I love it.
Yeah,
You
doing
never
their thing.
talk to them because you're like, no, they're gonna cast a spell on me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're like the sweetest people ever.
Oh
of
yeah.
course.
See, that's the thing.
Yeah, deceptions, right?
Yeah.
What were we even talking about?
We were just talking
yeah.
about the metal community.
Yeah, of course. Well, this is the thing. Okay, so back to this identity thing and like wardrobe and like emulation and representation,
Yes,
right? Like
yes.
you need to, people feel like they need to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm learning now that like standing out is what I'm supposed to do. Like that's what we're all supposed
Doesn't
to
it
do.
feel so much better?
Yeah, it feels good to remember. And I have to remind myself, and even like in recording, I'm like, oh, but it doesn't sound like this thing that I already like.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to remember, okay, well, that's kind of the point. Like, I'm
Yes.
making something. It doesn't, if it sounds like something that it already exists, they've already done it. So
Yeah.
it's done.
And that's the only reason it became popular and well known, is because they tapped into something that nobody else was able to do
Mhm.
and made it unique.
Yeah.
I'm in the same way because I'm starting to write rap music now. It's something I really
Mhm.
want to do, and when I'm writing it, like I'll be in that same thing. Like, this flow, this is a good flow that's catchy. This is a good flow that's popular. But it's like they discovered that on their own, so that's
Mhm.
their thing. Now I got to discover my thing. Do you find it hard? Like, do you get writer's block often, or does it just come to you easily?
I think I'm very much a person that has big bursts of creativity,
Yeah.
but then following through and finishing and refining is difficult for me.
Okay.
And I'm sure a lot of it is because of a feeling of being self-conscious and not knowing, like, what do I want to say? Why do I want to say it is important when you're writing lyrics. But just stylistically, like, figuring out a vibe musically and, like, instrumentation and everything, I do get stuck because, there's just so much music history to go off of. And the way that you portray yourself, the arrangements of your music, like, they communicate a certain message.
Yes.
And whatever's in your head, like, people don't know. So it has to be, like, whatever you present to people, you have to be clear on, like, what it means to them. Like, for example, if I start using, like, trap drums in a song, like, automatically, like, people are going to feel a certain way about that because
Mhm.
they've heard it before, they know what it feels like.
Right.
Even if it feels like, oh, this is just, like, cool to me, like, I like it, people might associate me with a certain, like, culture, vibe, like, whatever.
Yes.
And that's just, like, it's just musically, there's just so much, like, my brain wants to explode, so it's hard to just to find that, which, of course, like, I'm working with a producer, so it helps that I don't have to worry about that stuff as
Okay.
much.
For the new EP?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm working with Stu Kirkwood at Sound Extractor.
Very cool.
So that's exciting.
So, Karimah, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Can you plug your website, Bandcamp,
Absolutely, yes.
Plug everything.
So it's Karimah with a K and an H at the end, so it's Karimah.
anything? There you
Feel
go.
the breath.
Okay, it's a breath.
Karimah Music with a K at the end of music is my handle. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you do at Karimah Music, you'll find me. My Bandcamp is just karimah.bandcamp.com, and that's where you can pick up my current releases. Got some singles on there. And that's it.
She sings in French too.
I do sing in French.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I heard some of that.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
actually love that. I don't know any French, but
Oh,
it
good.
was awesome.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad.
You're educating people out here.
Right.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, keeping it romantic, with the French.
That's right.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,